Welcome to another educational video by the NewYork-Presbyterian Weill Cornell Medical Center Kidney and Pancreas Transplant Program. Today, we will talk to you about dietary guidelines after your transplant and the importance of healthy eating and lifestyle to help you thrive after transplant. Will I need to change my diet after transplant? The short answer, it depends, but most likely yes. How much your diet will need to change depends on what your diet was like before, but everyone will need to make at least a few changes. If you were following a therapeutic diet for kidney disease or diabetes, then some of these restrictions can most likely be liberalized. Before the transplant, you may have been avoiding sodium or salt, protein, sugar or other kinds of carbohydrates, potassium, and phosphorus. After the transplant, there's no longer a restriction on protein, and you most likely will not need to limit phosphorus either. For most people, limiting sodium intake and added sugar intake is still important. You may or may not have a potassium restriction depending on your blood results and what medications you're on. This will be something we check for you in clinic. No matter what your diet was like before the transplant, healthy eating is incredibly important in order to protect you from potential side effects of transplant medications and to keep your new organ working the best it can. Today, we will discuss food safety, including the safe handling and preparation of food to prevent foodborne illness, drug-nutrient interactions, and what foods cannot be consumed with your transplant medications, potential medication side effects and what you can do to mitigate these, and we'll go over the basics of healthy eating to keep you and your new kidney or pancreas healthy. Food safety is important for everyone, but it is especially important for you. Immunosuppressive medications, also known as your anti-rejection medications, are very, very important as they can protect your new kidney or pancreas from rejection. A side effect of these medications is that they leave you more susceptible to developing infections, including infections that can be brought on by disease-causing bacteria and other pathogens that cause foodborne illness, also known as food poisoning. Because you are a transplant recipient, you are more likely to have a lengthier illness, undergo hospitalization, or even die should you contract a foodborne illness. To avoid contracting a foodborne illness, you have to be especially vigilant when handling, preparing, and consuming foods. Everyone was given this little blue book from the USDA called Food Safety for Transplant Recipients. There are 4 major steps in keeping you safe from foodborne illness: clean, separate, cook, and chill. This means cleaning food properly, separating raw meat from other ready-to-eat foods, cooking your food thoroughly, and chilling your food promptly. You need to wash all your fruits and vegetables. You can eat your fruits and vegetables raw, but no raw sprouts such as bean sprouts or alfalfa sprouts. You'll need to cook your meat and fish to safe temperatures. The exact temperatures are detailed in your blue booklet. Getting a food thermometer is a good idea. Deli meats, also known as cold cuts, must be heated. All dairy products must be pasteurized. Check your labels of all dairy products, especially softer cheeses, as these may often be unpasteurized. Eggs also must be fully cooked. This means no runny yolks. Avoid foods or sauces made with raw eggs, such as classic Caesar salad dressing. Going out to eat. We recommend avoiding going out to eat for at least the first 3 months after your transplant. Avoid salads from restaurants for at least the first year. And avoid buffet-style restaurants where the consumer serves themselves forever. It's important to heat your leftovers to at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit before eating. Check your booklet for how long leftovers can last in the refrigerator. Most are about 3 days, but it will vary a little bit depending on the food. Cross-contamination is a term we use when harmful bacteria transfers from one food to another food or to cutting boards or eating utensils. This usually happens when raw meat, poultry, and seafood touch ready-to-eat food, such as salads and fresh produce. It's important to place raw meat, poultry, and seafood in sealed containers on the bottom shelf of your refrigerator. This will prevent them from dripping onto other foods. Wash your hands and surfaces often, especially after touching raw meat. And always use clean cutting boards, plates, and utensils. It's helpful to have separate cutting boards for meat and other foods. Food safety frequently asked questions. What about lox and other smoked meats? These are prohibited after transplant because they were never cooked to an appropriate internal temperature. Smoking and cold smoking typically do not get hot enough to adequately kill pathogens. Can I eat cooked sushi? This is still not recommended, since the sushi is typically made on the same surface with the same hands or gloves and touching the same rice as the raw fish sushi. Even cooked sushi would be at risk for that term we used before, cross-contamination. Do I need a special fruit wash or spray? No, water is adequate to wash your fresh produce with. The most important thing is that you wash thoroughly. What about parties, weddings, and other large social gatherings? These should be avoided for at least the first several months after your transplant regardless, but you can consult with your doctor for more specific recommendations. Once you are able to attend these events, do not eat food that's been sitting out for more than 2 hours. You should be one of the first to serve yourself so you can ensure the hot food is still hot and the cold food is still cold. Ideally, see if the host can make you a plate ahead of time that you can reheat when you're ready to eat. Drug-nutrient interactions are when a food or nutrient can affect how a medication works. It is important to avoid grapefruit or pomelo, pomegranate, starfruit, and Seville orange. This includes no grapefruit-flavored soda, such as Fresca, no grapefruit or pomegranate-flavored seltzers, juices, or other drinks. A Seville orange is sometimes known as a bitter orange or a sour orange, and it can sometimes be used to make orange marmalade. Some people use it to clean or marinate their meats. It is also important to avoid herbal supplements and herbal teas, as many of these can interact with the medications for your immune function. A healthy diet can meet your baseline vitamin and mineral needs. If you're eating a wide variety of fruits, vegetables, and other nutrient-dense foods, then you really do not need a multivitamin. Your doctor will prescribe anything that you might need to treat deficiencies, and please always check with us before starting any kind of supplement. Medication side effects. Our transplant medications do a great job at preventing rejection, but they do come with side effects. One of those could be high potassium levels. Even if your new kidney is working great, you may still need to limit the potassium in your diet, especially in the first few weeks to even a few months after your transplant. Your potassium levels will always be checked in clinic, and the team will let you know if they are elevated. Both Bactrim and Prograf can increase potassium levels. The highest potassium foods include potatoes, which includes potato chips, french fries, sweet potatoes, and other similar root vegetables, bananas and plantains, tomato sauce, orange juice, cooked dark leafy greens like spinach, kale, Swiss chard, collard greens, and beet greens. The reason cooked greens have more potassium than raw is because they shrink in the cooking process. Therefore, people tend to eat a lot more of them when they're cooked. Milk also has a lot of potassium, as well as beans and lentils. If you do eat beans and lentils, I recommend limiting to about a half a cup a day or less if your potassium levels are high. Your immunosuppressant medications may also contribute to high blood sugar, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and sometimes weight gain. A healthy diet can help prevent or manage all of these conditions, which we'll discuss on the next several slides. Healthy eating basics. Healthy eating is important for everybody. All post-transplant patients can benefit from a healthy diet, even if they don't have diabetes or aren't trying to lose weight. As mentioned before, your immunosuppressant medications can contribute to high blood sugar, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and sometimes weight gain. A healthy diet can help prevent or manage these conditions. So what does a healthy diet include? A healthy diet includes vegetables and fruit. It includes whole grains or complex carbohydrates. These types of carbs are higher in fiber and will be discussed in further slides. A healthy diet includes beans, lentils, or legumes, adequate amounts of lean protein, which can come from both plant sources of protein or animal sources, A healthy diet includes healthy fats, which we'll talk more about what those are in a further slide, as well as drinking enough water. For most people, this is about 2 liters or 64 ounces a day, but your doctor may give you a more specific recommendation. We talked about what a healthy diet does include, but what does a healthy diet not include? Almost all foods can fit into a healthy diet in moderation, but there are still certain foods that should be limited as much as possible. This may include added sugar and sweetened beverages such as juice, soda, and sweetened coffee and tea drinks. Yes, even 100% juice does contain sugar. It's also important to limit pastries, sweets, and candy, as well as certain types of sweetened breakfast cereals. Even these can have a lot of added sugar. It's important to try to limit saturated fat and trans fat. This is what we were discussing in the previous slide when mentioning healthy fats versus unhealthy fats. So less healthy fats could include fried food, as well as very fatty cuts of meat like bacon, sausage, or red meat. It's also important to limit large portions of high-fat dairy like butter, cream, and cheese. Try to limit processed, refined, or what we call simple carbohydrates or carbs. This could include white bread, white pasta, and other processed starchy snacks like chips, pretzels, and other classic junk food items. As we discussed before, it's always better to choose the whole grain or whole wheat version of these items. Lastly, try to limit high sodium foods, which is defined as those with more than 300 milligrams of sodium per serving. Check your labels to see how much sodium is in the foods that you buy. This chart may be helpful to reference as it breaks food down into 2 different categories. The best choices are the foods to choose most of the time, and the limit or avoid are the ones to choose less often or not at all. For vegetables, just about all of them are best choices. There really aren't any after transplant that you need to limit or avoid, the exception being if your potassium is still high and you know that there are certain ones to limit, or if you have issues tolerating any certain vegetables. Same goes for fruit. Almost all of them are good, healthy choices. However, it is still important to completely avoid grapefruit, pomegranate, star fruit, and Seville orange, as we mentioned before, since these can interact with your medications. For starchy foods and carbohydrates, the emphasis is on whole grains, such as whole wheat pasta, whole wheat bread, oats or oatmeal, whole grain cereals, brown rice, wild rice, potatoes or sweet potatoes, as well as some more unique whole grains like quinoa, farro, or barley, and corn also counts as a whole grain. Starches to limit or avoid would be your sugary cereals, pastries, potatoes in fried form like fries and chips, as well as white starches like white bread, white pasta, things like that. For your proteins, beans, lentils, fish, soy could include edamame or tofu, as well as shellfish, chicken, and turkey can be some of the best options. Proteins to avoid, red meat, pork, or any kind of fried meats like fried chicken, fried fish. It's also important to limit or avoid deli meat and cold cuts. Even if you heat them up, still not a great idea to eat all the time. For your fats, we had discussed healthy fats versus less healthy fats. So a good rule of thumb is that healthy fats generally come from plants and from fish. So think olive oil, avocados, nuts and seeds, nut butters like peanut butter, as well as fish, especially the fatty ones like salmon or mackerel. Fat sources to limit or avoid could include butter, cream, lard, fried food, and fatty cuts of meat like sausage and bacon. For your fluids and beverages, it's best to choose mostly water, but this could also include seltzer water. You could add fruit to your water for some flavor, as well as enjoying unsweetened coffee or tea. Try to limit or completely avoid soda, juice, and sweetened coffee and tea beverages. This could also include sweetened energy drinks and other types of sweetened drinks. Lastly, it's good to choose foods with less than 140 milligrams of sodium per serving. This is the definition of a low sodium item. Conversely, try to limit those foods with more than 300 milligrams of sodium per serving. Those foods that fall in the middle between that 140 and 300 could be considered a moderate amount of sodium and could be consumed in moderation. This is the Harvard Healthy Eating Plate. The circle in the middle represents a plate and shows how a healthy plate can be divided. It doesn't completely eliminate any foods, but puts an emphasis on more fruits, vegetables, whole grains, healthy protein sources, cooking with healthy fats and oils, and drinking mostly water or other unsweetened beverages. Thanks for tuning in to our post-transplant nutrition presentation. Stay connected to our program's educational tools and events by engaging with us on social media. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, or visit our website at www.weillcornelltransplant.org.